Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
Star Trek Podcast.
What was that all about?
I had some ideas late last night. I needed to consult with the computer about some quantum electrodynamic calculations. The holodeck Einstein program seemed like the best way. I guess I went a little overboard.
A little. Most of the stuff on that blackboard was way out of my league, and yours too.
Not really. I just haven't thought along those lines before. It's all really pretty evident now, and if you were to put your mind to it, I'm
Reg,
sure...
ever since our run-in with that probe, something's different about you.
What? Because I'm beginning to behave like the rest of the crew? With confidence in what I'm doing?
You just spent the entire night arguing grand unification theories with Albert Einstein.
Yes, but...
Reg, something's happened to you, and we can't ignore that.
Yes, I've finally become the person I've always wanted to be. Do we have to ask why?
Yeah, I think we do.
So what were we talking about? Okay, we weren't...
Ricky
Lake. No. What I was saying was we're supposed to stop talking about Ricky Lake.
Star Trek.
We're going to shift gears over to Star Trek.
Star Trek.
Okay.
Star Trek.
Right?
The Next Generation.
Yes. Okay. So, all right, let's get organized here a little bit for it. Let's orient the listener. That's you.
It's got Star Trek.
Yes. Okay. You are listening to the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
I'm doing the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
It's episode 114 of the It's Got Star Trek podcast. We welcome you. And we will be discussing...
and it's episode 419 of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Really?
No, it's not.
I don't believe that for a second.
It's the fourth season. It's the 19th episode of the fourth season.
Oh,
That sounds
it's
more
different.
I don't know the production code. The nth degree. So we'll get into that in a second. First,
the scanth degree.
I just want to mention, it's been a long time since we've talked TNG.
Are you talking TNG to me?
Yes, we are. Yes. But not too long ago, I was happy to join the Green Shirt podcast, episode 107 of that podcast, to talk about Unification 2. So if you want to hear some of me talking about TNG, you can go check them out. That all they cover is TNG, and I'm sure they've covered the nth degree.
It's hardcore.
So you can check that out. The other thing going on sometime soon is Captain Picard Week.
Oh.
There's a whole podcast festival sponsored by or put together by the Strange New Pod. Where a bunch of people are participating.
A Fodcast festival?
Yeah, so keep an eye out for that.
Picard cast Postable.
Picardcast Pasta Ball. That's good.
Pass the ball?
Pasta. Oh my gosh. What?
Pasta ball?
Pasta ball.
Pasta
It's
ball.
like a rice ball, but it's pasta ball.
Like a rice bowl or a pasta bowl?
No, ball.
That's impossible.
Or like
It's impossible.
Are you talking about a ball? Like a ball you kick, like a BALL?
Yeah, like a rice ball.
Mama gets it out with ALL.
What? Oh, you're talking about that detergent. Mama gets it out with ALL.
This has been a pop culture feast.
Okay. Anyway, we're going to start the podcast now, but I just want to call out that
Give a shout out to
Green Shirt podcast and the Strange New Pods Captain Picard Festival. Our schedules are a bit tight, so we can't participate in it as much as we'd like, but we will be listening and enjoying all because Captain Picard fucking rules.
Yeah.
Captain Picard.
He does, man.
You know, all is not
Pretty
a great
good.
name for a product because you want.
Do they even make it anymore?
I don't think so.
They don't make all.
But
anymore.
you want like two syllables, like ending in a Y, like a pet's name, like Downy or
no. What I want, most.
Most.
I want a detergent that's
Some.
most.
pretty good. And Mama gets it out with MOST.
All is just like
Mama
there's
gets it out
not
with EHH.
there's not enough hard consonant sounds. You know, it should be alp or like alpy. or
Alpo?
Elfie, no
Elfie.
fate, no fate.
All right. What are you talking about?
Elfie.
That's from Crass, I believe.
Oh, crass. Okay.
He sold out.
I I'm presuming this
Crass
is some form of
impression.
music.
That was the band
Oh, it was
Crash.
a band. They
When you guys start
they
talking,
became
in,
Chubbawamba.
you guys start talking in runes at each other, and I
Oh,
have no
yeah,
choice but to
sorry.
presume it's some form of musical.
That was kind of ruiny.
musical business.
The name is Crass, not Clash. You can stuff your punk credentials. It's them that take the cash.
That's right. Yeah. That's
So-
from their song.
Star Trek: The Next Generation, the Nth Degree.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Barclay. Barclay. This is a Barclay episode.
I know, right?
This is a Barclay episode.
What's the deal with Barclay? Like,
Reginald Barclay.
like he's on the Enterprise. Like, there's a reason why he's on the Enterprise.
This is a
But like,
much debated.
but it's
topic.
clear that he's not, Riker or Worf or either of the Crushers or
I forget. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yar.
Yar.
Well, what was the deal with that one guy
He's
on?
not even fucking Mott. That old blue shitbag.
I gotta agree. Something's up with Mott.
What about
with that guy.
what about that DS9 dude who was like he had that little story arc.
Which
He was like the engineer, and we saw him occasionally. He was an engineer that we saw occasionally. He started
Chief
appearing.
O'Brien?
No. He was
the
like
other person.
the one where I was like, I remember seeing him. I was like, who is that guy? He just appeared one day for a few episodes.
Oh, I think that was when Colm Meaney was filming a movie of some sort.
okay.
So they had that other guy,
That other.
but they set it up because they knew it was in the schedule that Colm Meaney.
Yeah, and I guess, there's Dr. Pulaski, but there was like a good reason to have Dr. Pulaski because of just what's practical. But yeah, why did they have Barclay? That's why.
Well, they got Dr. Pulaski because they wanted to. The producers didn't like Beverly Crusher. I'm guessing.
Well, I
Or
mean,
maybe she didn't like working
think-
with Rick Berman.
That's the point being is that we know the purpose behind Dr. Pulaski being there. It's
Yeah.
it's but
A
it's not
McCoy
in
clone.
store. It's
A
not.
McCoy clone. McCoy clone.
Oh yeah, she's kind of McCoy clan.
McCoy
She
clone.
hates Data like McCoy hated Spock,
but loves.
but loves. Yeah,
Hates, but intrigued by.
yeah, but there was a practical reason for them doing that. What was the reason? Like that was a non-story reason, but like what was the reason? Yeah, like why Barclay was in TNG. There was no like meta story reason. There was no story reason. They just threw him in every once in a while. But he's really good. Dwight Schultz is like
Dwight Schultz is good.
Yeah.
And it's a credit to him because
He's
I'm
a bit of a nut, but
I'm not a fan of the person of Dwight Schultz.
Oh really? I don't know much about him.
People can look it up.
he's
He seems like an obnoxious fella. He seems like the kind of guy you don't want to hang out with, but he's a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
And as much
Yeah.
as he's awesome on the A-Team and all that,
that's right.
for me, I mean, I'm
A-Team.
biased, but it's his work as Reginald Barclay is, I think, his top work. Reg Barclay, because he does some stints on Voyager as well as Barclay.
Oh yeah, there's that weird. I've seen some of those where he's like back on Earth, involved in some sort of project that's talking to Voyager, finding Voyager.
He was really
He's a Voyager buff.
he was really convincing as a bad actor in
Yes.
that play. Like it was really
Yeah.
convincing. It didn't even sound
No,
like
he
sometimes-
seemed like a person with severe social anxiety.
Yeah.
Trying to act in front of a bunch of people.
That was so weird when Crusher was like given the line. She's like, "I love you. I must go now. Oh, and tell him to write me." And then she like looks at Barclay, and he's like looks like he's almost gonna go in and kiss her.
Yeah.
And, like during the play, it's like, was he like misreading the situation with like, or is that's how socially awkward he is, that he's misreading a situation where he's in the play as an opportunity to like?
I think it was
I
just
don't-
more he didn't know exactly because they
Yeah.
showed him forgetting his line and
Yeah.
he was fidgety and
I
nervous.
It
like
was just, but yeah, and they
Data's,
did, but it just that one was really awkward somehow. It was weird. I don't know.
I like Data's reaction to, and he was like, "Well, why is everybody being so nice?" It's like it's just polite, and he makes this funny face, like,
Yeah.
like,
Dude,
"Oh, I'll pretend to be polite too."
Barclay's acting was so bad that it gave Data emotions. And
It made Data like question.
Well, and the bad acting, the bad because I agree
he was talking about
100%.
I didn't know what he was saying about the method. Why he was talking. I know what
he
the
wasn't
method.
following the yeah.
But like, who cares? The method approach is debated,
It-
right?
it-
Data's all
debated.
hung up on the method.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe by the 24th century they're like, nope, method it is.
Yeah, that's probably
None
what
of this freewheeling bullshit.
Maybe they were all about the method. I guess in the late '80s, early '90s. I don't know.
Yeah, or it was in popular culture now.
it was hip.
Like ESP.
It was hip to talk about.
But the thing is, with this bad acting, it's so nicely bookended later in the episode with the good acting, right?
yeah,
And part of what blew me away was it's like, okay, Barclay, Dwight Schultz playing Barclay, standard old Barclay. It's already a complex character. Even in the previous examples that we've seen him in, he's got to play both the fumbling, nervous, anxious person that he is. But then, for example, in the holodeck episode, right, where he does all the horrible things with stealing the images of fellow crewmates and making them in the holodeck.
Is that the first holodeck or first Barclay episode?
I believe that's the first Barclay.
I think it's that
Hollow Pursuits.
Hollow Pursuits. Is that the one where it begins with like he's late to a meeting and Riker's like "fuck you, Barclay," and like everyone's just like "fuck you, Barclay," and then Barclay's coming off as this real asshole, but he's just like has problems.
But in that one, he also has to kind of, when he's in fantasy mode, he is more confident. His personas that he plays, he's more confident, but those are still private. And to me, when he later in this episode, after he gets zapped, and we'll talk about that, when he does the confident acting, I think part of what makes it hit stronger is they had him do the bad acting first, and do it well, play his regular self, and then do this good acting.
And he had like the nose and everything.
Yeah, but when he did that soliloquy, although I will say I think it was a little ridiculous that Beverly Crusher was all like, "Oh my god,
yeah." She looked like she was
blown away.
She would look like she actually rubbed her face in some onions because like her face. I think they literally must have done something like that because her face was so red and weird. Yeah, I mean,
shove a bunch of onions in it.
Yeah, but yeah, she was
like red onions.
She was.
I love red
onions. Yellow onions.
Crusher likes the arts. She likes dancing and she likes theater. And she likes to, so Barclay really hit her, but she wasn't jealous. She thought it was awesome when she found out he hit on Troy. Like she was like,
yeah, they were both like, that's very un-Barclay.
Well, it's the 24th century. Gene Roddenberry's Gene Roddenberry's vision is that women would simply be like,
everybody's okay.
Ooh, everyone fucks left and right.
Yeah,
it's like the 60s.
I mean,
it's like when
I kind of dig it, but I will. I'll lay down the marker that there's some potential problems with that.
When Barclay like made a pass at her, we never found out, and this was bookended by the like.
We're talking about to Troy.
Yeah, to Troy. Sorry,
yeah.
when bookended by Riker, sort of like asking her at the end, but we never find out if she really would have gone. She seemed like she would have gone out with him, but she was close. She was close, but one, she was the counselor thing, but that might have been bullshit because she was also just so weird.
Sounded like bullshit.
Yeah,
there's already so much inappropriate stuff on TNG. Like it doesn't,
I think she was just like so weirded out that Barclay was so different or something. She was probably scared because when Barclay made Crusher cry and when Barclay did something else, she all looked all concerned. She was the only one that was like.
So I know we've jumped ahead here, but I do think it's worth discussing this because there's an inconsistency here. So she says early on when he asks her out, she says, "No, it's not cool because I was your counselor." Now, again, that could have just been an excuse. And there's evidence that maybe that was just an excuse because later in the episode, she, of course, agrees to go on a date with him.
Yeah, right.
Anything goes on the date,
so
man.
him being her patient.
Yeah.
So wasn't an issue then. So we must presume that she was maybe using that as an excuse before. But anyway, I'm not even trying to psychoanalyze all this stuff. It's just that there's that inconsistency there.
Right.
And I'm not sure what the message is of her having her do it. I kind of think the writers just fell in love with, we need a nice, cute little ending.
Yeah.
Let's pick up that thread.
I think so. I couldn't help but wonder after her and Barclay went on the date, I was like, did something go down? I don't think so. Because it seems like the reason I would guess that she would go out with Barclay at the end is because she knew what his intentions were when he was smooth Barclay. Yeah. He was trying to,
They remain friends though, because she's in the Voyager episodes that he's in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think when Barclay was going after before, it was obvious he had one thing on his mind.
Barclay's only want one thing.
But like when Barclay was normal Barclay, she felt like less threatened by him because she knew he wouldn't. But
at the same, it's like, what's the message there?
Yeah, I don't know because she was like really, but I still couldn't help to wonder. It's like they probably just went home and she's like, "Good night, Barclay." He's like, "Good night, counselor." They probably didn't do anything, but part of me wonders if in the future is that totally cool to just be like, "Yeah, we're gonna no big deal."
But then you could argue, is she being like over? I don't know. It's such a silly little thing, but it somehow aggravated me.
I mean, Beta Zeds are open, right? I mean, I know that nudity and sex are not the same thing, obviously, but they're super open. There was that weird thing with like Worf and Troy and Alexander were sitting in some mud bath in that one episode.
Troy's mom was there.
Oh yeah. I think that was the same episode. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I don't know.
It's like when
seems like Beta Zeds would be open.
When you do like the instant genius stuff, like you always get like the super smooth with chicks thing along with it. Like,
Oh, you're
Yeah,
just
like
talking about. I was like, hey, is this something? Can I do this? What's this instant
the-
genius?
you know, the instant genius trope. You know, like
is this some sort
this
of pill?
movie. This is a lot like that movie Lawnmower Man. You know.
Oh yeah.
Or do you
yeah.
remember Stefan Urkel from Family Matters?
Or Keenan and
Because
Kel?
Right.
Steve Urkel, like when he
Right.
had a
Yeah.
machine that turned him in Stefan Urkel,
Totally.
and he was totally smooth.
Hey, there's a couple. There's some Star Trek. There's some Star Trek precedents for this because this plot is similar in some ways to 2 episodes. Two.
Ooh. Well, it's similar to I'm Not Jokingly.
Yes.
Ah.
Yes, where no man has gone before, where Gary Mitchell
Gary
and
fucking Mitchell.
Elizabeth Danner, they get zapped by the galactic barrier powers and become super powerful. It's a little different, but the same concept, which is the how do they react to being all powerful? There's the episode, was it Q Who with is it Q Who? I was getting the Q episodes confused, but where Q turns Riker into a Q.
I believe that is Q.
Oh yeah.
And
Wait, wasn't
That's one of the
but
early
Riker,
Qs.
Oh, yeah, that's what-
Riker,
yeah, right.
Riker, unlike Gary Mitchell, Riker eventually was like, man, fuck that noise. He enjoyed it for a bit, but he's like, I'm a Starfleet officer. I'm from Alaska.
yeah.
I'm not going to do
Alaska.
that. I'm not going to do that bullshit. Just have God powers
We don't
bullshit.
do that in Alaska.
I just want to play some Parisi's Squares, God damn it.
So Barclay Parisi Squares. Yeah, is that the dangerous one where people die? And
I think
shit?
it's the dangerous one.
So Barclay
As opposed to, what was it called? Like Ambu Jitsu?
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
That was also
But
dangerous.
right.
Not as dangerous as Parisi Squares.
Involved some American gladiator style pugil.
It was
And you,
dangerous on
you weren't allowed to see for some reason.
Yeah, right. So Barclay became the ship's computer. Now, on the lines of like what it was similar to, I'm wondering who would win in a smart fight between Smart Barclay, Gary Mitchell,
Smartly.
Smart
Smartly.
Smart Barclay,
Bark Smart.
Big Reg.
Wait.
Big Red.
Smart Barclay, the talented Gary Mitchell, the talented,
The talented Gary Mitchell.
or the Discovery ship's computer.
Zora.
Yeah, Zora. Yeah, who wins in a smart fight?
Did you have Commander Data in there?
Data doesn't. He wouldn't be able to compete. I don't think.
Okay.
But I didn't add Data.
Okay.
I think Data would be close.
Yeah, well,
I think Smart Barclay was smarter than Data.
I think smart is measured
'Cause
along
remember-
a number of dimensions,
Well, of
and it
course.
depends on the
Yes,
context
yes,
that we place these
right,
characters
okay,
into.
all right, of course. Okay, I know there's. Not
I know
just-
you know that.
Okay, but I'm just telling the audience in case sometimes when I say things, I'm not talking directly to you.
I know. I was telling the audience in support of your argument.
not
I was
supposed to speak
clarifying
directly
it
to the
again.
audience.
This fourth
Part
wall.
of my role on this podcast is to head off those emails and tweets.
emails and tweets.
The emails and tweets are all like, well, actually, you know,
Actually, you're stupid. Did you know that? The smarter person would know that you're stupid.
the
get
internet
the-
doesn't like you.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't like you. Just stop. Just no. Just no. Just stop.
Why did you kill yourself? We don't get much of that because we're 3 white men.
Oh man.
And while people will vehemently disagree with us, we
Dan, are you white?
intriguingly
might say.
we don't get threats of rape and
Never thought
murder.
about that.
Yeah, I can only. God, that's fucking terrible.
Yes,
That's
yes,
so
it
terrible.
is.
That's such a bummer.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, back at the ranch.
Back at the ranch.
Star Trek.
So as far as the question of Data versus Barclay, remember that when
Joe Piscopo.
when we got the first view, I wrote down the Barclay smart moments. I have like 12 moments listed.
Barclay Bart
Hey.
moments.
Sparkly Bart. I'm not gonna get by this with all this wordplay. It's gonna fuck me up. So when
Does it count as wordplay if it's not so fun?
Just sort of
so,
word tedium,
Bit of a chore.
word chores.
So I talked about Troy being worried. That was in the 4th Smart Barclay moment when Barclay makes Crusher swoon with his acting.
Smart Barclay.
And then the
This is
third
some classic Dan counting shit
Counting
stuff,
shit.
which I'm loving.
third Smart Barclay was this part, which proves that Barclay is more talented than Data in this scenario because they were talking about the Argus array was broken down, and Geordi said it's like we got to go bat him in series, basically fix the what is it? Fix the
Computer cores.
yeah, the reactors. It was fix the reactors,
yeah.
and one by one. And then Barclay, this is his first time of being smug. Third Smart Barclay when he finally understands what's going on, and he's like, that's the first time he's starting to get a little full of himself. Because before he's like, what the fuck's going on? And now he's becoming smooth. But he said, no, let's do them all at once. Data said, that's interesting that you want to reprogram that shit, but it'll take at least 7 weeks to fucking do that. And Barclay said, I'll do it in 2. So right there, that's the evidence that we get that Barclay is outshining Data at this point, So that was third smart Barclay moment.
Smart Barclay!
Smart Barclay! I've got a bunch more, but...
hold on real quick, because it will aggravate listeners that I mentioned 2 episodes that this shares some similarities to.
Sorry.
And it's quite all right, because there was no natural segue. No natural segue.
Segways aren't natural. Do people even still ride those through the city anymore?
I think the company went under.
Underground.
People still ride them.
Now there's punk rocker segways.
Yeah, it's like a sort of it's a steampunk style Segway.
Whoa.
Gangs of Segway people riding through the...
You just get a bunch of steam in your face.
It's a steam-powered Segway.
Yeah, they're still electric, but they're charged with a steam engine.
With like a dirigible attached to it.
A didgeridoo?
And some hilarious copper goggles. Copper goggles. Copper frame goggles.
Smartly Barclay, copper gobbles.
A big old clock.
All right.
Copper gobbles.
I don't want to upset the audience too much. We're one of those. This is one of those. Let's aggravate the audience on purpose because it tickles us.
I think are you sure you're not deflecting to the audience and it's really you that's getting aggravated?
Maybe it's you that's getting aggravated.
Is it deflecting or projecting? I don't know.
In that case, I think it would be projecting, but I don't think that's what's happening here.
Okay. Go on.
Total podcaster honesty.
Okay.
As is the creed.
As is the creed.
The other episode that this shares, this sort of lays the seeds for the Inner Light coming up down the road in the 5th season. This is a 4th season episode, because what do you have here?
It's
It's a funny little probe.
You have a probe shows up. It zaps somebody,
space applicator,
and that it has some.
Yes,
it has some purpose that at first seems potentially, malignant, but now it's in fact benign. It's a benign
it's
purpose.
some big head people.
It's like some other alien race trying to communicate with the Enterprise
About
through really
them.
inconvenient, pain
It's
in
the
the ass
guy
means.
from that Seinfeld episode of the Latvian Orthodox.
What?
Remember when?
Are you talking about the Cyrithian at the end?
Yeah, he was also on Deep Space Nine.
He was on Deep Space
Oh,
Nine.
he
was on the Storyteller.
I really want to know where I've seen him
He
before.
played a Bajoran.
He was on He's been on a bunch of television.
Because I wonder what the internet thinks of that guy. Because I really like his faces he makes.
His
It's
name
like
is,
he's really awesome.
K. Cutter.
Yeah, K. Cutter.
K.E. Cutter.
It's hard to figure out what this episode is about. Well, anyway, keep going with your.
It ain't
He was
about
on
much.
Green Acres.
And all I was going to. Oh, that's cool.
Petticoat Junction.
Of course.
Green Acres is a great show. I was just mentioning the Inner Light connection there, that you see components. Components. It's not the Inner Light. It's a different deal. But you see the components there that are later put together in a different way. The other thing that's a fun little trivia about it's not trivia because people fucking know it. It doesn't count as trivia if people know it, right? But the Argus array.
It's a fact.
That shows up later in Parallels, which is
Sounded familiar, yeah.
Yeah, because that's the one with Worf, and he's in a bunch of different dimensions and stuff. And so the Argus
That's
array
a good
is-
one, yeah.
So
And the Argus array also has shown up on some like maps and stuff, like during TNG and even Picard. I think they have a map where the Argus array is listed.
Some canon array right there.
on TNG, I don't know how they go into it, if they go into it anymore, what it's about later, but it's introduced as a subspace telescope,
Yes.
which I don't know what the fuck that means. But what we find out is it's just an extension of the mechanism that allows the Enterprise to travel to the center of the galaxy, right? It's not a telescope. It's is it a means of travel?
Okay, we'll have to pause there for a moment because
You lost.
I never thought that. I mean, I just thought it just happened to be
I thought it was a telescope.
that they were. I don't know that they used the Argus array in order to open subspace. But now that you mention it retroactively in my brains, it seems like it could be the case. But I don't remember any language that's like we're using the Argus array to do it.
So near the end, after when Barclay calls them the Cytherians and the aliens like, oh, Cytherians, not necessarily. It should have been Phlox. That would have been awesome.
Everything,
they should redo that.
Everything should have been Phlox.
They should redo that like they did with Star Wars and Anakin with the Hollow.
Did you
people.
redo that?
Just replace it with Phlox's face, going, "Ooh." Not that. Anyway, but then Barclay said the probe was designed. I'm spitting all over my computer. What is going on?
It's not COVID safe.
No, it's not. Barclay said the probe was designed to instruct outsiders on how to reach the system. That's what it was made for. but the technologies aren't always compatible. And then he says they failed with the Argus computer
Yes.
and with the computer on board the shuttle.
Yes.
But they were able to reprogram me. So the
Yes.
Argus computer is part of the Argus array, which means it was made by the Cytherians because they made
No.
it in order because
No.
they wanted to it was designed to instruct outsiders how to
No.
reach the
No,
system.
you everything you said up to a certain point
They
was
made
100%
They
correct.
made the proby thing.
And then you made a jump. The probe tried to hijack the Argus array, didn't work. Tried to hijack the shuttle, it didn't
Oh,
work.
yeah, I
and then
see.
it was successful hijacking Barclay's brain for one reason.
Okay, fine. Fine.
Ah,
I don't care.
quickly resolved.
I'm right.
Quickly-
I'm
It
right.
had a funny,
My name's Dan. I'm wrong at everything. I'm stupid.
It had like a
My
funny
name's Dan.
wheel
Don't
on
listen
the
to me. I'm
back of it.
stupid. I'm stupid. Don't listen to me. Stop listening to me. Whoa. Stop listening to me. I'm stupid.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go on.
It had a
You're
funny
right.
wheel on the back of it. Did you notice that?
No, I
With the
Sort of
Argus
like
array?
no, the probe.
Oh, the probe.
The probe looked like a big pill, right?
It was like it looked like a pill.
I can't remember. It was
Some
repurposed.
kind
They're
of-
always
looked like
repurposing
some
stuff.
kind
I
of
can't
applicator.
place what they were repurposed this from previous. Whatever.
So yeah, okay. So the subspace telescope is an extension of the mechanism that allows the. No, we don't know what it is.
I don't know.
But it stopped relaying the data though, which would indicate that.
no more data for you.
So the probe fucked with the Argus array. That broke the Argus
Yes,
array,
and it
It's-
broke the shuttle.
And then
its
they got
reactors
there.
were
So they
gonna
weren't trying to
overload.
lure them there, but they just got there. And then the probe saw it as an opportunity to be like, hey, maybe. So I don't know. It was doing.
Well, they went. It wasn't trying to lure them there. They got there because the shit weren't working.
Yeah, right. And so, but the probe saw them, and it was like probably just like. So the probe was
It was
improvising.
another target. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was improvising.
It was just going to keep trying, and
Yeah.
probe didn't even try to do anything to the Enterprise
It's like
until
like a
after the
jellyfish
Barclay
or
stuff. Then
something.
it was chasing him.
virus.
So
The impulse engines made the Enterprise go backwards. How do impulse engines even work? I've always wondered that.
I don't know. Maybe it modifies the specific impulse in the gravitational field.
They
and
eject
Oh,
they eject part of the
locality.
crew.
they just use the mass of the crew.
Okay. I'll
It squirts
go with it.
water.
They have a bunch of those
Yeah,
big-
right. It just squirts
It's
water.
Just they
those
take gas.
octagonal boxes they keep in the cargo,
yeah.
Yeah,
cargo
right.
holds.
The wharf
like-
crushing boxes.
Yeah,
And the-
wharf crushers.
and the bulkheads.
Yeah,
The bulkheads.
bulkhead.
That always makes me think of like beefy dudes.
Bulkheads.
Yeah,
steakheads.
You know, because you talk about was it jockheads? There's a phrase that has something with heads.
Meatheads?
Meatheads.
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 Smeat.
Bulkheads.
Smeat is a form of spam. So I was talking about how talking about Troy hitting on Barclay and Barclay making a pass at Troy. He
Hitting
didn't.
Barclay on the head.
He didn't. Yeah. So right, I was wrong on two accounts. I said Troy hit on Barclay, but Barclay didn't hit on Troy. He made a pass at Troy. Is there a difference? Yes or no, Jesse?
Could you clarify the
Wait,
question?
what?
Is there a difference between making a pass at someone and hitting on someone?
No, doesn't that mean the same thing?
That's what I would
That's
think.
just an old-fashioned.
I just thought of that.
I think they're part and parcel of the same category. Perhaps you could argue some nuanced differences between the two, nuances that are so nuanced as to have very little relevance to the actual impact of the act.
You're saying that shit don't matter. Stop trifling, Dan. Doesn't matter. So at the when they were leaving that room, Riker says to Troy, he says. So Riker says to Troy, he goes, "You said he made a pass at you, but you failed to mention whether he was successful or not." And then Troy's all like, being coy, like, and then he like,
She's like, fuck off, Imzadi.
It's also
Imzadi.
he's looking.
I guess technically you can't be an ex-Imzadi. Don't send the emails. I know.
Don't they get back together eventually?
Yeah, but I don't
They
know.
got kids and
And they
shit.
make pizza and stuff.
Yeah, they make.
Well, that
pizza.
one guy's making. He's probably burning it.
Yeah, but after she says that, I like how he looks around at everyone. He looks at Crusher. She's like, I don't know, and then he looks back. And if you look closely, it's easy to miss. But he looks back at Picard, and Picard doesn't want any part of that conversation.
no, I
He's
saw
just
that.
totally ignoring it. But
Picard almost doesn't want anything to do with this whole episode.
He really
oh,
does.
dude,
There's that part where he's like, he doesn't know what to do, and he's like, "Well, I'm open for suggestions."
And he's embarrassed because he's like, because I think Picard at that moment, because we should talk about just in general.
Well-
it's a common topic. Why the fuck do they let people just randomly do shit on the Enterprise? And this is an example where the look on Picard's face at that moment seemed to be like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have, like, okay, I had a crew member. He got zapped so hard he got in the hospital by the same thing that zapped a couple of other big pieces of equipment. And a couple minutes later, he's disobeying orders.
And I said it was okay at first.
Maybe we and and by the way, we are currently doing his plan.
Well, Riker was
Shit went bad when they were doing his plan, Barclay's plan.
in that meeting. Riker was the one who was saying like, "We got to stop this now.
Yes.
Something's going on." And like, he was right.
Everybody's
You know?
like, let's just.
Yeah,
cut
Picard's
the guy
like,
a
nothing's
break.
going on right
Cut the
now.
guy a
It's like
break.
you'd think Picard would have some foresight, be like, oh, he's not doing anything wrong right now, but he has like dramatically changed.
He's
in the
fucking
past
Barclay.
24
Yeah.
And there's two ways to interpret that, and I think they're two equally viable ways to interpret it. One is that the reason why they're giving Barclay the benefit of the doubt is because they're good people, they're good Star Trek people, they've known Barclay for a long time, and even though he's acting a little bit weird, they believe that Barclay has a good heart and he wants to do right. The other way to interpret it is that they're kind of listening to Barclay now because he's not such a tweaky person, which is kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, it's the same dude, but now that he's sort of chill,
Yeah,
we're going to be...
Right.
Yeah.
Listen to me, guys.
We'll hand over fucking full control of the ship to him. Not that they did that on purpose.
Well,
He
he-
sounds so
but
confident
effectively.
and knowledgeable about
he
it.
usurped the computer really at first from Geordi.
Yeah, that was like, I don't understand how you don't get in trouble for that.
Yeah, well, you saw
Just because you
That's
saved the day.
That's some Starfleet inquiry shit right there.
Like when
that's a court
Mariner
martial.
on lower decks, when Mariner saves the day, she still goes to the brig afterwards for right. That's more realistic. Lower decks is more realistic.
There's a hearing.
So-
there's a hearing.
So when Barclay, Jordy Barclay. So this is the second smart.
Let's call the whole thing off.
Sometimes in space.
The second smart Barclay moment was when Geordi eyes Barclay and predicts Geordi wants him to shunt all plasma to the emitters, and he's like, "Oh, I already did that, buddy," you know, and then
Hey, buddy.
so Barclay usurps control. He pumps up shields 300% so they can blast the probe.
Just like Reebok's pumps.
And I like when Picard's like, "Thank you, Mr. Barclay." This awesome line. But this was like a callback to the beginning of the episode, because when they're checking out the probe initially, Barclay says, "Thanks for assigning." Like initially, Barclay's going to Geordi. He's like, "Thanks for assigning me this mission." Before he's like, "Don't mention it. You're one of my top engineers." Geordi, LeVar Burton is really good in this episode, by the way, too. I thought he was really good.
My
But-
buddy, my
he keeps
pal,
like looking
my good
just
time
good
boy.
time boy.
bewildered.
Yeah.
Like, he's always just like, what the fuck is going on?
It is funny.
So Barclay says, "Thank you for assigning me the mission." LaForge is like, "Don't mention it." And then, and when after, you know, Picard's like, "Thank you, Mr. Barclay." And then, Barclay looks at Geordi after Geordi is looking at Barclay like he's scared for his job at this point. Like no one likes getting showed up by their subordinates, except especially Barclay like that. But he's also freaked. He's also worried about Barclay too. But and then Barclay says, "I'm sorry, I overstepped my authority," and which LaForge says again, "Don't mention it." So the first time he says,
He doesn't know what to say.
so the first time he says, "Don't mention it," it was after Barclay thanked Geordi
Yes,
for
a
lifting
nice thing.
for lifting him up. The second one was a "Don't mention it." Was after Barclay apologized for going too far. So one was lifting him up. One was sort of like. It was like an equalizing.
that was like
it was-
literally like, let's never talk about this again. Dog.
I had
Yeah,
not
it was
observed that.
the
That
"Don't
is
mention
well
it,"
observed.
It was acted as an equalizing force to bring them both up and down in those situations. So anyway,
Which is a perfect segue because
through the wormhole.
Mr. Geordi says that, and then they go to commercial. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go to a quick break.
oh shit.
A quick break. And then then we'll be back with more Star Trek TNG: The Nth Degree. be right back. Hey, guess what?
What?
We're back.
Oh my gosh.
Those were some stupid commercials.
This is so crazy. It's time for a new character.
My name is. Does it count as a new character if your character sounds like an existing character that you did not create?
This time my name is Boof Boof. I want yum yums.
I'm not Mickey Mouse.
I want yum yums. Give me yum yums in my tum tums.
Oh, Star Trek.
That's like your standard, like, we got back from the break character.
Yeah, but this
Like,
time.
hey, Jesse.
Hey Jesse.
Because like eating all them cookies. over the break.
Hey Jesse, what are you
I know
doing?
it's our caterer. That's the issue.
Hey Jesse, what are you doing?
Craft Services is generous on the. It's got Star Trek.
Is that named after
Lot.
Kraft? K-R-A-F-T?
No, I think it's C.
It's a different craft.
It's like because we have a craft.
It's because like
Yeah.
people who like making scrapbooks and
like
stuff
saying-
are also
it's like
good at
talent.
putting out donuts.
But it's not invented by the Kraft company.
I think sometimes
Probably
it is.
not. I don't know.
Probably
I don't know.
If there's a bunch of cheese.
I don't have an
and shit.
answer for you immediately.
I don't have an answer.
I don't
for
like have an
you.
answer for you like totally immediately.
Oh, this actually reminds me of the first Smart Barclay situation.
Okay, all right, can I just while
Okay,
you're loading
yeah.
up your notes?
Yeah.
Smarkleys.
This is a purely positive comment.
Okay.
Because in addition to loving this classic, because you haven't done it in a while where you're like counting out stuff, I'm loving that. I'm also really loving the fact that you're doing it completely out of order.
right.
I think the first Smart Barclay moment you mentioned
was like number 5.
I think it was the fourth Smart Barclay
It was
moment.
number 4.
Now you're talking about number 1?
Now I'm talking about number 1. See, this encourages people to listen back and put them all in order and release that order on the
Does
internet.
it?
It's like a
So, I mean, yeah.
Smart Barclay!
So I'm happy to list them all in order, but at the
Puzzle
same
cast.
time, I'm also worried about like compromising too much
No,
time
it's all
trying
good.
to
The flow,
integrate.
bro.
Yeah,
It's
trying
all
to
about the flow,
it.
bro.
But whatever works, you know,
flow,
baby.
bro.
So
I mean, it does highlight the fact that we're all over the fucking place in this episode.
yeah,
but
I guess we are.
I'm cool with that because
I'm
there's a
cool.
certain charm?
Yeah, that's it.
Charm about it?
So when you were like
charming
so,
to the nth degree.
so when you were talking like da 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 da
You said the name of the episode?
that reminded me of the first Smart Barclay moment when Barclay was like, you shouldn't have to wait too long for the results. And Crusher was like, what do you mean? He's like, couldn't you use a global mode in your scanner? It would be a lot faster. It's
like, that's not possible.
And so, yeah, and the way Crusher says it, she's like, that's not possible. That's not possible. That, what is it? How she goes like, that's up. She just says it really all bratty, like, that's not possible.
Oh, just wait,
and then
wait until we get. My
then-
favorite line is from Riker, but I'm not going to reveal it.
And then, so after she goes, that's not possible.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, then she goes, we're talking about human cells here, not isolinear circuits. And then she goes, I think you better stick to engineering,
Yeah.
Lieutenant.
That
You
was fucked up.
It was a weird, and it was such a weirdly delivered, like cheesy, like,
there's
it seemed like a high school play or something. I don't know.
There's a consistent thing with Barclay. Relatively consistent, certainly with the prior episodes, where everyone treats him like so shitty and uncharacteristic to what you'd expect from those characters, right? From Geordi and Beverly Crusher and Picard and stuff. There's this tendency,
Even Riker.
and including Riker, there's this tendency to be like, oh, that guy, fuck that guy.
Yeah, well, that was in the
Even when they think they're being nice to him.
well, right. Yeah, in the that was what I was mentioning. I think it was Hollow Pursuits where he was late to a meeting and Riker was just like, Barclay, get your shit together, you know.
And even in this episode, when Geordi is being nice to him, certainly the scene reads very nicely that Barclay's like, oh, thanks for having me come in the meeting or in this mission and all that, as you mentioned earlier. But it is kind of funny that Geordi's all like, yeah, man, you know, I figured eventually we got to take you on a fucking mission. Something about
You're
the
one
tone
of my
of it
top guys.
was like we know he's a talented person. We already know that. He's been described that. He's on the Enterprise D.
Yeah.
We can presume he has some level of talent.
The D, man.
This is not a California class vessel that these people are floating around on.
On that line and Geordi talking to Barclay, I also like the part where LaForge is like, something's happened to you, we can't ignore that. And Barclay's get all pissed. He's like, I've finally become the person I've always wanted to be. Do we have to ask why?
Yes.
But then Geordi's response was greatly delivered. It was just like, yeah, I think we do.
Yeah.
I thought
Brilliant.
that was a really good.
That was really one of the nicest scenes in the whole thing because what was good about this episode. What was it great because of I'm wording this in a hilariously obtuse way. In many Star Trek episodes, they don't realize that something bad is happening until way later. So they caught on to the fact that Barclay was acting different and making a connection to maybe something to do with that probe business that we destroyed. Like they caught on to that like fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason why I say it's not great is because they didn't really do anything about it right away.
They decided it was okay.
Yeah, they didn't do anything about it in a serious way until he took control of the ship.
Yeah.
And even then, they were being good Star Trek
Except for
people
the
about
propulsion. He didn't have the propulsion.
Yeah. So I give it credit for especially Geordi, like early on being like, what the hell is going on here? This is some like why
He's like, I know this guy. I work with this guy. What the fuck?
I still think Crusher should have examined him more thoroughly earlier.
You might be one of the most advanced humans ever.
Well, so here's the
kind of shit is
oh that was in seventh Smart Barclay
perfectly okay.
That was the seventh Smart Barclay moment when Crusher straight up tells Barclay he's smart. She said, and you talk
But
about
we're not going to do anything about it.
She's all like, "You're wicked smart."
We're going to let you go. We're not going to examine you anymore. We're just going to turn you loose on the crew.
He had an, he
You
had
might
a,
be the smartest person in history.
he had an active corpus callosum and an IQ of 1200 to 1450. Does the IQ go that high? I don't know if it goes that high.
I don't know.
Who knows how that shit works?
Mine does not go that high.
I think
Okay.
your brain would implode or something.
Yeah. So all this aside, and maybe what I'm about to ask doesn't support that, but I really liked this episode actually.
Oh, me too.
I thought
It's a great episode.
It's something about it fucks with. It's just like a fucking weird ass episode. Now the question I was asking earlier was, what is this episode really about? Because there was some weird ass like sci-fi travel through like fucking like different. Traveling through fucking subspace is weird,
And
man.
there's no moral. You would expect a moral debate about the mechanism and the method that the Cytherians used to explore.
Yeah, you'd expect that, but there was nothing about that. All Riker was just like, Psh,
Right.
those guys,
It was like,
they
oh,
like
these
to,
guys.
these like to explore just like us. Wow, we gotta love that.
Meanwhile, those other
They're just
aliens,
lazy.
when Captain Picard gets kidnapped and replaced, and he's in with the other aliens, with the Nausicaan and all that stuff.
Nausicaans.
I can't remember what was that one. It was I know the name of that episode. But anyway, in that episode, they make a big deal. They're like, "No, this is fucked up. You don't kidnap people and study them."
Yeah.
Isn't that what
That's
happened
because there
here?
was like a
Yeah.
false Picard, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah,
that's what
and
happened
so-
here too. They're
so-
like, we brainwashed a motherfucker
It was Barclay and it wasn't
to
Picard.
convert you. to fly you across the galaxy.
And so there's something really fascinating about the whole idea of like getting communicated from creatures from the center of the galaxy. First of all, everything's always the center of galaxy. We've never ever bothered to try to travel to other galaxies before, but
real quick, important nitpick.
Too far away. Man.
Important nitpick.
it's way too far away, man. That's how far away it is. It's so far
You'll
away.
never make it.
It's so
You'll
far
never make
away.
it.
It's so far away that stories can't reach it.
I know.
Important nitpick.
You'll never make it.
No, important nitpick.
Important nitpick, which is when they go through the subspace business that Barclay activates and sends them through, and then they arrive at the milky, like it's all milky clouds. Milky clouds
Yeah.
means this is some new place. We've never
Yeah.
seen these milky clouds before, ever before.
What about Star Trek 5?
Well, but that's another point, by the way. Star Trek 5 is another point.
That had a big old head too.
But they get there, and Picard and Riker, they're all like, where the fuck are we? And then the ensign says,
think I know
we're
what you're gonna say.
30,000 light years from our previous position, if the computer is correct. And then Picard's
Yeah.
like, oh, the center of the galaxy.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
It's like she didn't say which direction.
Yeah,
you
I
went.
noticed that too. Yeah, yeah. that
Why
was-
the hell can't you be like outside of the galaxy at this stage?
Right, and so yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I
that's
did-
like, well, you could
We're
go
in
a
the
different
Delta
direction.
Quadrant, or maybe you're just on the other side of the. Who knows?
And
I mean, you could go a million different directions.
And there was some cool techno babble that like made that seem like there was some order to it. They're talking just like 'cause
Order!
when they was doing that fucking scene where they're traveling through that shit and everything gets fucking weird. My brain just started screaming
Oh,
at that
the
point.
quantum level like
Yeah.
oscillation.
Yeah, right.
And
And
he's
he's like
classic case of quantum level
Yeah,
oscillation.
yeah, and he says doubling in intensity every 12.3 seconds. It's like, why did they bother saying that? I can only guess to make it seem like there was an order to it, like it made
Right.
sense for some
They
reason.
could've said anything.
Yeah, they could have. Biocellular disruption is imminent. But yeah, when they traveled, so there was this fascinating idea about.
Biocellular disruption probably is a name of a great like Swedish black metal band.
So when they, yeah, I agree,
Probably. Just a guess.
So what that part of that scene, it was all craziness and everything was going insane, and then they get to the center of the galaxy. I couldn't decide. Like they played some kind of chill music, and I was like, "Oh my god, what just happened?" I'm wondering if it would have been better if it was completely quiet when they reached the center of the galaxy. You know what I'm saying? Like how it was going on with our quantum oscillations, and once they zapped through the galaxy, if they just went silent, and it was just like if that would give
I don't
more
see
of
why.
an
I don't see why they
experience of awe.
didn't. Why didn't they just use the spore drive?
They didn't have a spore drive. Stupid.
Yeah, but why don't the Cytherians know about the spore drive?
Maybe they should use.
Why not?
The
Why don't they?
They should use the
Tell me why.
Protostar is what they should have used.
Yeah, why didn't they use a protostar drive?
Okay, so anyway, the
Protostar.
point I've been trying, one of the points I've been trying to get at is,
The OnStar
so you have
system.
all this interesting shit about like, intelligence, and then Barclay fucking gets into a computer, and then they're traveling through subspace, which finally, thank you for traveling through subspace. It's like,
Thank you.
I know it's only for messages, but it's meant for more than that. There's not just some, there's not just some plot device that's there just to send messages in instant time. That shit exists for other reasons
Yeah,
too.
apparently you can do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. But so So, but I mean, that's kind of a neat. And then it's like
subspace sandbar.
and it's like the idea of what, for whatever reason, in the center of the galaxy, there's these weird, like fucking alien things. And that was cool. There was like some kind of neat philosophical things.
Are they just heads, or is that just what you see?
I think it was just a projection, or they could have been specters. I don't know. But
Well, what if they were ghouls?
so there was all these interesting sort of
Little green.
these sort of
spooky.
there was a smattering of this philosophical idea, but part of me thinks that it also felt kind of rushed, like maybe they just reached the center of the universe. Like the whole episode was just about what happens to Barclay, and I couldn't tell if they were actually exploring interesting ideas with all the side stuff, or if that was just simply a method. It's like a wedge salad.
It could have been crab.
A
people.
wedge salad is the iceberg lettuce is just a vehicle to get blue cheese and bacon in your mouth.
Right. Yeah.
Was the subspace travel,
which is a noble purpose. Purpose. Noble purpose.
pursuit. So was the traveling through subspace and the Cytherians and all that shit, was that just the iceberg lettuce that got you the blue cheese Barclay in your mouth?
That is an evocative analogy. It is so evocative. I'm
Most
afraid
definitely.
I'm going to kind of have to think about that for a few days before I can formulate an adequate response.
That might be for the next podcast.
So I couldn't tell if they were
Do
going
a follow-up bonus
Follow-up.
podcast
I couldn't-
with my response to that
I couldn't
evocative analogy.
But I couldn't tell if they were going for something deep or if it was just kind of like, we gotta wrap this episode up. Because like you said, they never talked about the moral dilemma of like
Right.
capturing this fucking ship.
It's like we got here and
And-
we didn't get killed. And
Yeah, and you thought Picard
Quantum level oscillation delay.
Picard like gave that look like he just got pied in the face, you know, and Riker's like, ho, 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 ho. And it's like, wah, wah, you captured us, but you just want to talk because it's cute. And then so it's like
it's just another day in space.
so it seemed a little rushed in that respect, but so it makes me think the only point of the episode was really it was like a Gary Mitchell thing where they were just trying to talk about.
Well, so with the Gary Mitchell thing, that was a very focused episode. It was focused on the idea of how does a human behave when given ultimate power. And from a philosophical and a sci-fi and a humanistic perspective,
They're
it
not
was almost
Yeah,
Shakespearean.
Barclay
It
was just a puppet in this case.
and so one question I have, well, I'll step back briefly because I will also say I've always loved this episode. I think it's hard to get the image of Barclay getting lasers in his
Yeah, I
eyes
love-
and all that.
Yeah.
all that stuff. It is a fun story. It's interesting. All the little sci-fi bits come together nicely. But when it comes to any sort of thematic or moral stuff and even some story consistency, it leaves a little bit to be desired.
What's
Like we talked about the Troy business, for example. It's a little unclear what they're trying to say with that. It's unclear what they're trying to say with the Cytherians.
and you don't always have to say something like, for example, what was the episode, one of the earlier TNG ones we did where the ship keeps going in this time loop and they have to figure out how to take it out of the time loop and keep from blowing up.
Where it keeps blowing up.
That wasn't making any commentary at anything. It was just like you were watching a game being played out in front of you.
was a cool story.
It was
Just
a cool,
a short story.
Yeah, it was a cool story, and that's why it worked. And this was like you couldn't figure out what they were getting.
Well, there were
at.
also hooks that they could have hooked onto here that they didn't. And again, it's no big deal. It doesn't really impact the enjoyment of the episode, but it stands out when you compare it to some other episodes that do a better job of this. And for example, I have a question for you, and this is a retort. I don't know what the answer to this question is. So, are we meant to understand that Barclay's refusal to follow orders, like did he do what he did? Did he
Do what he did?
Did he do what he
Did
did?
he do?
Did he do what he did?
Can do.
As a function of he got smart and confident, and so this is how Barclay, whatever you call Barclay,
Like the
this is how
Enterprise's
everything-
speed is a function of warp.
or are we meant to understand? And there's, I think, more evidence for this perhaps, but are we meant to understand that Barclay was simply reprogrammed in such a way that he'd have no choice but to do this, a la Data in Brothers when Data gets his recall chip activated and he takes over the Enterprise in order to get back to Dr. Soong.
So I think it's more the latter, but there was a couple. There was what?
Oh, sorry. I was actually supporting you. No,
No.
because I agree.
Yeah.
that it seems like it should be more the latter.
Yeah.
But
Eh?
I don't know. Now you've got the pressure on me.
I'm just excited for you guys to trot out some evidence.
There's two, but no, my evidence is actually makes me question the latter.
Point number 1 and number 2, except you're going to say point number 2 first.
Okay, point number 2.
Is there a third point?
I can't remember any points. To say that it's not, that he wasn't just a puppet, there was, of course, the scene at the end with the chess piece where it's like, oh, it was Barclay. Part of it was like that whole, oh, Barclay's been smart all along. Or maybe this experience left him changed. I don't know. That's not real clear.
Or maybe it was just a funny gag that came up with. Right. And they're like, this is a funny gag.
Yeah, like didn't think too hard about it. But one part that I didn't know why they really included was when, and the only reason I could think is to try to make it seem more like it was still Barclay, was when he was in the laser place, in laser tag, and Troy like tries to get him to stop what he's doing, and he goes, "I've always had respect for you, counselor," or "I've always wanted your respect." Like, why did they bother saying that Barclay always wanted counselor's respect? Now I think they did that just to show that it was still Barclay in there.
Clearly, it was still Barclay.
But
so
it's
mostly confusing.
But it's confusing. But I think it mostly leans toward the puppet side, which is why Gary Mitchell is more interesting in that respect, because that wasn't.
And again, Riker, when Riker chooses not to keep those powers, right? So presumably Barclay didn't have a choice. Right, that's the interpretation. I think that's the most plausible interpretation. It's also somewhat less interesting.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Because it's more Barclay gets this experience that he has a vague memory of.
And I think they might have tried to make it more interesting by saying he had interest in, he always wanted Counselor Troy's respect to make it seem like he had more agency, but I don't think it really
I was
worked.
confused by what he was saying there because it was such a threatening situation. He'd already taken control of the ship,
It was a really
and then
threatening
he's like, I always wanted your respect. And then she says, well, you've had it. I respect you. And it's like, well, what I mean, she's kind of, it's an awkward situation because she can say either way, but she doesn't want the ship to get blown up or whatever. So,
are there more Barclay episodes after this one?
There's like 5 total in TNG. I think.
Yeah, well, there's the one where he's in the transporter and he's getting nibbled on by evil snakes in the transporter.
That one's effed up.
Yeah, it's not that great of an episode.
Does that one like come after this one?
That's much later. That's like season 7 or something.
So the when he was in, I want to
maybe
talk a second about that laser place he was in. So how do you explain that to the props people? How much of it is like the props people?
Well, you said it, man. Laser place.
But how much of it is like, do the props people have to interpret what was told to them by the person who came up with the idea? Like, someone came up with an idea. They went to props. They're like, we want this machine that kind of has these laser beams blinking around. And they were just like, just think of something.
Maybe
and the
there's
props
a
people
drawing.
and the props people. Oh, there was probably a drawing.
I don't know.
But
That's usually. I used to wonder, like,
really
well, it's awesome how, like, in Lord of the Rings and all those movies, they have all those statues and they have all the artwork and the clay statues and shit just for inspiration.
Or that
and shit.
George Lucas motherfucker, he does that shit.
And that inspiration, which is tight, it seems like, wow, all this artwork went into just making a movie, and that artwork isn't even in the movie. It's just to conceptualize shit.
Hanging out.
And so that's what, and I always thought that was a really fascinating part of the movie.
The chair, I think the point you were getting at, of course, was that the chair was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And especially compared to his description, because he said, can I get a work chair or whatever? What was it? Do you recall?
He was talking about an alphanumeric.
Well, even before that, when he was just asking for a chair, he was like, can I get a console chair or a work something?
He says, create as follows: workstation chair.
Workstation chair.
Now,
why does a workstation chair look like some sort of crazy throne?
Yeah, right. I know.
Like Conan the Barbarian techno throne.
Now, the alphanumeric console, for some reason, he's a position for the left hand. For some reason, alphanumeric console position for the left hand meant 5 feet out of reach of the left hand. You notice it was like way in fucking front of him.
So I guess he's left-handed. I'm left-handed.
Well, I'm just saying it seemed like it was far away.
I'm left-handed. I noticed that he wanted the alphanumeric interface on the left side.
He's left-handed. He's no-handed.
I'm presuming he's left-handed.
He's no-handed.
Although I think we might have seen him right with his right hand.
I just thought maybe the alphanumeric console, why was it so far away from him?
Because they're stupid.
Okay. That whole part was the
was a brain interface.
That was the 8th smart Barclay moment. Was Barclay?
We're missing a couple.
How
of
many are there?
I've heard 1, 2, 4, and 8. So you might have mentioned others. I just don't recall.
Maybe,
well,
I
7.
There was a 3.
Well, I said their 7th smart Barclay moment was when Crusher tells.
Oh yes, that's right. When she says you're smart.
You're smart. Yeah. But then after that is the 8th smart Barclay moment where they're freaking out.
I thought there were only 7.
Where they're freaking out an engineer, and Barclay is like bitching about how like the computer interface is too slow, which is a weird.
Wait. Did you say they're freaking out in engineering or freaking out an engineer?
in engineering.
Okay,
Sorry.
I
Everyone
heard
was,
an engineer.
Sorry. Everyone in the
It's like they were
engineering.
hoving above an engineer being all like, boo.
Everything was gonna go to everything was gonna go to shit.
Ooh, spooky.
And everyone was freaking out. And Barclay was talking about how the computer interface was too slow, which is a weird concept to imagine. Is it just saying it's calculating slowly? What does it mean
the
to
interface.
say that?
He means the interface.
Yeah, that's what I mean, but
thoughts
how-
in his brain, he couldn't get them like
So is it
through
like
to the Argus array.
So it's like when Microsoft Word introduced the ribbon, and now it takes 4 clicks to do 1 click or something like that. You know, is it just take more clicks to get to where he needs to go?
Oh, you're saying that was like a step back.
Right.
Some people didn't like it.
Yeah.
I don't have an opinion on it, but some people liked it.
Man, I don't even have an opinion.
But so is it just saying it's like he requires too many button presses?
I think so.
So
yeah.
So that he's really saying he's too slow. He's blaming the interface, but he's physically too slow. He should say, "I'm too
he
slow."
has a
to do it."
horrible meat body.
Yeah.
A disgusting floppy meat body.
Well, he does.
A totally useless
Hindering
slow
his,
meat body.
So
mind speed.
just
Right.
chunky bits of
And
meat
so-
that he can wiggle around with his brain meat.
And so he's obsessed about this interface. He storms out about the interface. This is the 8 smart Barclay moment because he makes his own. And this is when it gets really fucking weird. That's the point where shit just gets
it
fucking
goes
weird.
totally lawnmower man.
Yeah. He gets a neural scan interface. He's like, "There's no such device on file." He's like, "No problem. Here's how you build it."
Let me tell you how to build it.
Oh, Christ.
Let me tell you.
I'll tell you about it.
build it.
Are you for real?
But that's when shit started going batshit.
I'll tell you
The
what my
episode started
magic
going
cards
batshit
say.
at that point.
Yes.
And in a good way. I enjoyed it. I was like, this is
totally
fucking
fun.
weird.
It was good. It was good sci-fi, good batshitness, good, close to getting to some like ideas, but not quite, but enough to think about them. Right? It was almost like they were like, we've got this Barclay business, and he's gotten all this extra intelligence and
Sparkly
creativity. And Sparkly, that's a good one. He's got all this going, so obviously we could do a whole story about what's the impact on this person's life, what's the impact on his relationships, what are the moral and philosophical questions, what are some technical questions about what is his future just living in the bowels of the ship now? Like we could do all that, but you know what? Let's not worry about that. Let's do some more like slow motion, like whoa, and the people watching, they'll think about all that other shit on their own, and I could buy them thinking that because that's exactly what we're doing. We're all discussing all the things they did not in fact mention, and because they didn't mention them.
And and it's also just the classic thing of episodic television where it's like never talked about again. They changed that. It's like all the new technology they found. Like, they could have probably got from the Cytherians a way to, because originally that computer was supposed to like teach them how to like warp around through subspace. You'd think they'd get to hold on to that tech. Obviously they don't for story, because it's just a story and all that
that
stuff.
would be crazy.
And they never made any jokes about, like, they were never joking with Barclay about that. Remember that time when you took over the ship?
Right.
You totally all like
stupid.
you hit on Troy.
It's like-
but kind of worked in the end. Remember that?
But now we can travel to the center of the galaxy whenever we want, to the, what is it, where all that's where wizards come from? Isn't that where like
the Milky Clouds?
the witches and TAS?
Wizards?
TAS?
Was that in the center of the
I
galaxy?
can't remember.
Something
I
like
remember that. Yeah, that was. I mean, they were in a different dimension, so I can't remember.
They were from a different dimension.
That shit was wild.
Could have been outside the other way.
So,
when you go the other way in the galaxy,
Yeah.
you leave the galaxy.
Go listen to that podcast. Nobody listens to enough of the TAS episode. It always aggravates me.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
Aggravates me. They're some of the best episodes we've ever done. And
Ever.
And there's some good episodes of Star Trek too. Go.
We just did one last week.
You don't even watch the show. Just listen to the podcast. They'll be entertaining. You'll figure it out.
What are you worried about?
What are you even worried about?
So I just mentioned the 8 smart Barclay women. I might as well quickly mention 9 and 10 because they feed off each other. They just feed off each other.
Is there 11?
Do you mean like one of those situations where like a snake, like a python, is eating a crocodile, but then the crocodile's eating the snake's tail, and it happens in Florida? You
Yeah,
mean
it's
one of
like
those
a
things?
yin yang
Some sort
Escher
of
kind of thing, right?
Ouroboros.
Yeah.
Like a horrific, hellish yin yang.
Yes, exactly.
The circle of life
So-
writ large in the Florida Everglades.
So I was
Invasive species battling against the native fauna.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, exactly like that. The 8th smart Barclay
So
moment.
you.
Why is Florida a
You're
state?
you were like tossing out these really clever analogies. I thought,
Yeah,
give it a try.
I'm all for it. I appreciate
I'll put
it.
that analogy coat on and
Put
give
that
it a try.
on. You just put an analogy coat on by talking about analogy codes.
Analogy codes.
Or is that a metaphor? Metaphor. Is that a metaphor?
Metaphor.
A sarmally?
Hey, y'all got in the
Metaphor.
You got in the
Data.
metaphors.
Data.
Metaphor. I mean, I'll take a simile. You
What's
got
a
one,
me-
but I
what's a
prefer a
metaphor?
metaphor.
What's a metaphor anyway?
It's a dick fool.
I'm a gopher. Go for this. Go for that.
All right.
So I would talk about the eighth smart Barclay moment was when he when he makes his mind interface and it gets weird. Then so that now we've reached like sort of the apex of what he can do, and now everything after that is just icing on the cake. Because the ninth smart Barclay moment was the conversation between him and Geordi when Geordi was fixing it, and he was like, "What do the people think of me?" And Geordi's like,
When Jordy's trying to sneak around.
Yeah.
Jeffries too.
And so this conversation is meant to tell us that Barclay has now reached infinity. Basically, he's like the mental singularity.
He's like Hal, or like he's like all.
Yeah, he understands everything. It's like it's
But he wouldn't be.
established-
It's me. I think the way I envision that, if that actually happened, I don't think he'd be talking to nobody.
Yeah, probably not.
I think at a certain point, you don't bother talking to
You
Geordi
wouldn't
or
need
Worf.
to.
or
it wouldn't be
nobody.
as interesting to
Yeah.
watch on TV, I guess. But,
Well,
you know.
yes.
But you're right. I agree. I mean, that's not a good. That's
But
not a good
you
excuse.
could do it in a book. You could do it in a book.
You could do it in a book.
Yes, a book you could do it.
You could do that in a book.
A la The
book.
Expanse.
Yeah.
Yes.
The writers of The Expanse have done a great deal of psychedelics.
It seemed like psychedelic influenced this
I think
episode
so,
a little bit
yeah.
too.
A little bit.
I was watching some shit and like so a lot of the fans.
You were watching shit.
Yeah, you were watching shit for breakfast.
Speaking of
You're just
psychedelics,
looming over your toilet
When-
bowl.
when
and
you-
just like, I wonder what it's gonna do next.
When you start like reading about all fantasy books, you start to think that all the authors were fucking taking something.
Oh, they must have.
Like-
a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, so wait, I was.
Ladies.
Can we come right back? Can we take a quick break and
Let's
then,
take a
then
quick
finish
one.
up with starting off with your point?
Yes.
All right. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll start off with Dan's point.
Yay!
Maybe he'll be a funny voice.
All right. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Ready for Dan's point.
This is my new character. I'm the character.
you gonna talk
I am Boofy Boof Boof. That was the name of my last character.
You're turning into,
That was a Boofy
You're
guy,
turning
yeah.
into Justin Roiland with his two characters.
Yeah, right. It's me.
Gobbledygook. Flarganargnarg.
So, Barclay makes mind computer at 9th. Barclay reaches infinity 10th. Now that we know Barclay's reached infinity, now he's established a will entirely of his own. He's still Barclay because he wants Troy's respect, but like the conversation with Troy and him going against the captain.
Is this
now,
a sparkly number 10?
That's the number 10, and that's when he gains his own.
But
that's
is it
when
a
he-
will if all he's doing is working under the demands of his reprogrammed brain to get to the Cytherians? Is it truly a will of his own?
That's a good question. And is
Because
there?
he wants to go. He's like, we got to go there. It's not like we're going to go the 30,000 years, the 30,000 light years in the other
I
direction.
mean, now we're getting into that question about like, is there free will and shit like that? But like,
I'm not
Intention
really.
versus non-intention.
Not really. I
mean,
I'm
to a
just
lesser
saying. In this case,
yeah, I know. I think I know what you're
right?
saying. Yeah,
it's like
that's a good point.
He gets all smart, and if he truly had free will, I think we can assume they haven't given us a reason. I mean, they did. The Cytherians programmed him to bring you. You should come here. It's a homing beacon. Whereas if he had free will,
But those
but the
guys
same
suck.
level of intelligence, maybe he would have been like, let's go check out the Delta Quadrant. I hear they got some
They got-
wacky space creeps
Yeah.
floating around out there.
Gross faces.
They got the Kazon, they got the
Space
Hirigen, they got that species 8538675
They got that Neelix.
That's a good point you make. It's a good point.
Neelix the space.
I guess the 11th smart Barclay
He
was.
names his cat Neelix.
My 11th and 12th are kind of weak sauce. The 11th was just kind of like when Barclay finally like he outsmarted.
Oh, wait, there's an 11th and 12th?
yeah,
Like a turkey
The
gravy?
12th is the last one. When
What's a
Geordi
weak sauce? A turkey gravy?
It's like Shakespeare's 12th Night.
were those weak sauces?
There's 12 things in a dozen.
There's 12 steps. There's 12
Except
months.
for a baker's dozen.
which is 13.
But a baker's dozen was not out of generosity. It was due to the very strict taxes and other punishments that would be levied against bakers that were shown to not provide a sufficient amount of wheat
Wheat.
in their
That
baked
sounds like
goods.
propaganda.
Oh, it's for real, bro.
So the 11th...
For real. They
the-
gave the extra one to be like, hey, see?
That's baker
See?
propaganda.
I gave you plenty of bread. I
So
put plenty of wheat in the bread. I didn't water down the wheat, none at all.
the 11th was like Picard's like, Picard to LaForge, status. And then Geordi's like, ready, Captain. And he's like, proceed. And LaForge is like, acknowledged. And then Barclay's like, Commander. And then LaForge goes, what? And Barclay goes, you're too late. And that was
can we do a bonus episode that's just you reading a script?
Yeah, just
in this style.
Yeah.
Like an entire script.
Just an entire script of an episode?
Yes.
I would do like a book on tape?
Yes.
Would that be technically plagiarism?
No, because my knowledge of
It's a
you
tribute.
would be adding, consciously or otherwise, you would be adding enough
So
character.
satire would still fall under satire.
It would be, I'm quite certain we'd be fine.
So, okay. So that was a moment where shit was starting to go wacky and he was actually implementing his shit. I swear, I watched this episode 3 times and I swear Geordi's voice sounds higher pitched in that scene. I swear.
Just in that scene?
Just in that scene.
All right, give us an example to demonstrate the difference in the previous scenes and this scene.
I don't know if I feel comfortable doing
Well, you see,
that.
it was like lower in the other ones.
Yeah, it was just like, it's like, no problem, Reg. No problem, Reg.
No problem, Reg.
Yeah, I think we do. And then when he goes ready, Captain, and Picard's like proceed. He's like acknowledged. that's kind of like acknowledged.
Sounds like Janeway.
My theory is that they went over time by like 2 seconds and they couldn't cut any more material, so they just they sped up the actual video to make it. Of course, they could have cut a little bit out of that 12th Smart Barclay moment, which I just wrote insanity.
What?
I just wrote for the 12th Smart Barclay moment. All I wrote was insanity.
Okay, does that mean something, or were you writing a personal note to yourself?
I guess it was really just the it was just the effect.
Were you commenting on the Smart Barclay list?
It was the it was basically
You're like, it's got to be 12. It's got to be 12. If it can't be 11, it's got to be 12. There's going to be 12 moments.
It was really
Insanity.
it's an extension of the list because it's just the effect of all of Barclay's actions. The final effect, the result in the 12th Smart Barclay moment, the result is insanity when they're traveling through subspace. Everything's getting really fucked up. Data's talking about quantum
It's just
model
insanity.
oscillations. That shit was fucking crazy.
It was crazy.
It was fucking crazy. Like, this episode would be really messed up if you were fucking, like, tripping balls watching it, I swear, because he's
We should do a podcast where we're just tripping.
He's just
balls.
ascending closer and closer to some kind of conscious
You
singularity.
can watch the episode while we do the podcast.
Yes.
Like, when
And then
they...
we could listen to an old podcast that's unrelated to the episode that we're watching.
Like, they're talking about some fucking Einstein talking about 26 dimensions instead of 10.
Yeah, that seems
and
pretty
they
funny.
they travel through subspace
Oh, right.
on some quantum level, and everything's vibrating and going nuts. It's like the brain's exploding in slow motion.
Brains?
And right as the insanity is about to be too much, it just like, goes all quiet and like, you know, into some place that might as well be heaven or something. Like, it's a really fucking weird...
Milky clouds.
There's a really weird ascension into this climactic peaking moment.
You
that's
said
like,
ascension.
yeah, it was and that was fucking weird. But and that's what that intrigued me a lot about that episode is it just got kind of fucking weird, man.
I like it when the probe is like chasing them and like it keeps chasing them and Riker's all like, at warp 2?
Yeah, right.
I also enjoyed that because you'd be like, why not just go up to warp 9 or something? You know,
I know, right? What is it, like the 22nd century? Or
Well,
something?
it was funny how
Sometimes they were better at being like, you know, we got like resources and stuff. We got to balance this shit out against need.
Well, I mentioned this
The
earlier.
need for
I thought
speed.
it was funny. It was speaking of need for speed. It was
Speaking of it.
It was moving like a car. It was like going in reverse, and then it like did an about turn or whatever, and like started flying off. It
The
was
Enterprise
weird.
D does that a lot, and it looks cool when it does it. I think when you sometimes you see other ships do that, it kind of looks more
Anything goes on the D.
hulking. But the D feels like it can back up. All right, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean.
It's a comfy ride.
It's a comfy ride.
You can look at its little rear-facing photon torpedo
Yeah, that
port.
thing, yeah.
You know, photon
having
torpedo ports. You know, the
little-
rear-facing ones.
Little D butt.
Looks like a little butt.
Looks like a little butt.
Little D butt.
Yeah. Any other major points to make about this episode,
I'm
or shall
afraid
we
not.
shift into our odds and ends? And the other closing down bits.
Let's see. The 5th Smart Barclay was when he hit on Troy. Smart
Yeah,
Barclay.
I forgot there was some we skipped
It
over.
was when he hits on Troy. That's the 5th Smart Barclay, and she's like,
You might have mentioned that one.
Yeah, no, I didn't mention that because I the one point I wanted to make. Well, I did mention that in a circuitous
but
kind
you
of
might
way.
not have
Yeah, I
specified
didn't
there was
specify.
the fifth-
You're right. You're right.
the
You're right.
fifth one. I got you.
You're
It's
right.
time to specify.
She talked about how she enjoyed his performance, and he's like, "You're a very forgiving audience," which is a bullshit line. That was not smooth because it's very obvious he gave a good performance, and that feign like modesty is just tacky.
It is a little. Well, he was an asshole. So
What about his French accent?
when he hits on Troy, or makes a pass at her, whichever
you feel more comfortable with.
language you prefer. I thought when I see that scene, I think, okay, the indicator here is that Barclay is more confident. He's smoother in his speech and addressing Troy, and he's still a creep. And I know that a lot of people won't interpret his behavior as being creepy, but to me it kind of was, because it was like, you know, my deal with you, you know, I had holographic images of you in a metaphorically sexual way.
But so did Geordi about that one.
That's not good either.
Yeah, right.
But
Geordi has his problems as well. There's a whole problem with in engineering.
Yeah, it's typical.
On the D,
I'm not saying
On
I'm not suggesting there's a problem with flirting with somebody that you're attracted to. It's just, I don't know. There was something about it. There was an arrogance to it that made it. And he, even though he knew that it might not work, and I think what we're supposed to get from that is that, even knowing that it's unlikely to work, he was still willing to make the attempt, because that is not what normal Barclay would do.
Yeah, that requires an extensive amount of confidence that he didn't have.
So from that storytelling perspective, perfect sense, and it fulfills its function very well. But it just came off a little
creepy,
and that might be my own biases.
It did.
But to me, it just was like, ugh. You're still a little like, ugh.
He wanted to see the Zalnias with her. He wanted to see her Zalnia is the thing.
No way, Barclay.
What's a Zalnia?
It's some kind of plant in
Star Trek. Is it a
Star
Trek plant?
It's 2367. Reginald Barclay, imbued with newfound confidence given him by the Cytherian probe, suggested to Counsel Troy that she might walk with him in the Arboretum to see the Zalnias as they were in bloom in the nth degree. So I guess this was the only place it was mentioned.
Is it like a vine? You think it's some kind of vine with some
maybe it's
happening flowers?
Maybe it's a perennial.
It's a love vine.
But do you know when Barclay stood up after she left, he almost did the Picard maneuver, the pull down.
He did.
He did. They
all do. They all do that to a certain extent.
Because
Picard does it like the most because he's getting up and down a lot.
Wardrobe doesn't fit. Right.
Yeah, and he did do it, but you could tell he was trying not to do it because he was trying to be smooth about it. But those things must suck to wear. The Enterprise, we've said this before. Enterprise has the most comfortable uniforms, but Discovery, they get the best shoes. They got sneakers on Discovery.
Discovery sneakers, and even their boots. Their boots are pretty tight.
Nice. They got nice sneakers.
They look perfect. All right, more odds and ends. Odds and ends.
I think I'm just about done with the Barclay list. I think this is the last one. Is the 6 smart Barclay moment?
6.
There's a bonus moment, but
bonus.
But which I kind of mentioned when Geordi talks about, I think we do, talking about, why do we need to ask why? It's when Barclay is teaching math, teaches Einstein math, essentially. And so it brought up an interesting point, though, about how math is fucking weird and awesome and kicks ass. But people, I remember watching some show talking about there's actually 13 dimensions. And it's like, I think
string theory offers a few different,
and I think string theory is
11 dimensions, 15 dimensions.
I think string theory has been
it depends whether you're into brain theory or not.
I think string theory,
BRANE theory, brains, M brains.
I think
not like a fucking membrane. It's an M brain. I'm just tossing it out.
Is it M brain?
I'm just demonstrating. I have read an article or two.
Is it a B shirt? No, man, it's a Z shirt. So people,
T-tuggers. What was that?
So, anyways, I think string theory is out of fashion right now. I've heard
string theory. The issue with string theory is that the math is all brilliant and works out. There's as yet no way to test it.
Yeah, so
and that makes it hard to really look into.
So, people wonder why we hypothesize that there's 10 dimensions or 13 dimensions, and that's why. It's because math is why. They just add dimensions to make their equations work. But essentially they're like, my equation doesn't work. Let's add a dimension. And I'm not saying that's necessarily wrong. I think
it's totally valid, but it does not necessarily prove it.
It's so abstract and weird. What's the deal with this cosmological constant?
What's the deal? Because here's the thing.
The cosmological constant, where does it come from? It's got to come from somewhere. It's not just some random fucking number that exists.
Einstein came up with the cosmological constant, and then he grew I was about to say grew tired.
Grew weary of this cosmological constant.
No, he decided he didn't like it, and so he sort of abandoned it. But more recent, and again, I ain't no physicist. I don't know shit, but my understanding is that more recently it's come back as a concept, but maybe in a different way than Einstein was thinking.
Right. So I remember using the cosmological constant when calculating certain, extraterrestrial or celestial. Sorry,
I used it last week when I went to 7-Eleven.
Yeah. Those fucking big bytes are huge.
Isn't math
They're
just
so big
sort
you
of
need to use a
invention
cosmological
of the
constant.
human mind? Like,
It's just a total abstraction that represents. It's like an interface to
just how our brain works.
It's an interface to reality in a way.
It describes real things, but in ways that we invented, and some of those things are arbitrary, even though they're mathematical in some senses, right?
Right, but it all sort of holds some kind of key to like everything, you know.
The key to everything.
But anyway, so cosmological constant, it's like pi. Pi, we know where pi comes from. It's the circumference divided by the diameter. But what creates the cosmological constant? And I am not qualified to answer this, and I might even be asking the wrong question.
You might not be qualified
I think
to
you're
ask
asking
it.
the wrong
I might not be
people.
qualified to even ask this question. But the thing is, it's like there's 13 dimensions, there's a cosmological dark matter, there's all this shit we like just kind of like it makes the math work, but
Here's the
there
reason.
are 12 smart Barclay.
Vulcan
Here's the reason-
was the invented planet to make the rotation
Yes.
of planetary bodies. It was a made up planet to account for the
Yeah.
planet's motions in the
Until
sky.
they
back
figured
in
some
the-
more shit out.
Yeah.
But the way to think of it is it's not invalid, but you have to go beyond that. It is not invalid.
Right,
in the
no,
same
it's
way-
not invalid,
Like
no.
for example, with evolution, right? Evolution said, okay, we have this bone at this level, and we have this other bone down here at this level. We expect to find in between them a bone that is in between these two other bones.
Right.
And then they go look at that level, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, word up, we were right.
Yeah.
There's
The
no
thing
bound
is
there.
with the string theory is they got the first part where they're like this makes sense to be here. These extra dimensions, it makes sense from what we're looking at. But then it's like, okay, now the trouble is how you're gonna show that.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
All right.
Griscott.
So yeah, Griscott is
Griscott.
which puzzles me. Because that's an Austrian phrase. It's not very. It's an Austrian, maybe a little bit in southern Bavaria. I'm not familiar enough with Swiss German to know if Griscott is.
But you know about Swiss cheese.
Yeah, it basically means like the grace of
I know
God.
about Swiss
Griscott,
cheese.
it's like you say it as a greeting.
Oh, really?
In Austria, but it's also an exclamation.
Yeah.
It's kind of like God damn,
Yeah, right.
but like in a nicer way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You know.
God damn. I said God damn.
All right, odds and ends. I have one. Did you finish up all your business with the
Well,
with the,
I did
with the
have
numbers?
I did have a bonus one. That's not
Oh yes, the bonus.
It's not a
one.
Barclay being smart moment. It's
Barclay.
it's a Barclay fails at being smart moment.
Uh-oh.
I thought at some point Barclay was going to circumvent Geordi's monitor prevention process. You know how they disconnected the audio? I thought that at some point Barclay was going to be like, haha, I've been listening all along. But
Using lasers on the window panes.
and at minimum, he would at least know that they were cutting him out of the situation. He would know that they
You
were
would think that.
motherfuckers are talking
So,
about me.
But
You could tell that it was muted.
yeah, so the whole point of that was obviously just a total plot device, just to be able to give him a chance to talk. Yeah.
You gotta give those guys a chance.
So,
man.
but that was a Barclay
I
fails
liked-
at being smart moment.
I liked.
Didn't get past the monitor prevention.
I liked when my favorite line of the whole episode, and I can't even remember the exact context. I think maybe Worf says something. It's something about like something not working or whatever. I wish I had it in my notes earlier, but I accidentally deleted it. But all I know is when Riker he was all like, "What?
Oh yeah.
What?"
Yeah.
It was somehow uncharacteristic. Somebody said something to him. I have a feeling like it was Worf or something.
Yeah, well, so Anaya is going, yes, sir, Helm's not responding. And Worf goes, Captain, we have lost computer control. And
What?
Riker's, what? He also did that before when Barclay said it would take him 2 days.
What?
To,
What? Okay.
well, there was the word seven was used 8 times in this episode.
Are you doing the word searching again?
I could have it ready for you in 2 days. What? He did it there too.
What?
What?
Interrogative.
My favorite line in the episode was back to call back to when Jesse was saying Picard didn't want anything to do with this episode.
Mm-hmm.
When Riker goes, how do we get him out of there? And LaForge goes, we don't, not without killing him. And Picard just goes, this is an intolerable situation. It's like
this is fucking ridiculous.
yeah, it's like there's this look of defeat on his face, but also like disgust. And he's just like, fuck this shit.
He's like the Argus array's all fucked up. This dude's all fucked up. Now my ship's all fucked up. Jesus.
He looks like he just ate like a big booger or something. I don't know, but it's
They
like
should have had him walk into his office, and then his fish would just be dead and floating at the top of the
like,
tank,
man,
and Picard
I'm
would just
out.
look at it. He'd just be like, figures.
yeah. I've no wish to harm him, but I cannot allow Mr. Barclay to continue to act as the computer. I don't care how smart he is. That's funny. But yeah, that was my favorite line.
Odds and ends.
I mean, I have another one, but I mean, you guys go.
Go for it, dude.
I just wanted to quickly mention
Give us another.
that Riker was a total cornball in this whole episode. There were not many scenes with him, but the ones he was in, he was totally corny.
Like the first one with Barclay explaining the situation, and
Yes,
Riker's
yes.
all like befuddled.
Yeah, right. He's like, I see that. Mr. Barclay, everyone's still trying to figure out, I don't get it. That was like total cornball. But even before that, at the beginning of the episode, it almost seems like a hollow dream sequence or something when Barclay's performing, because in the audience, when Riker's like looking at Troy and they're all smiling, it seems like someone's having a dream almost, because it's so fucking out of character and weird. And then especially when after it's over, Riker goes, bravo, and Troy's like, wonderful. It seems like a fucking dream sequence. And so him smiling
Except for Data being all like, what the
yeah, that was
fuck is wrong? He's like, I don't want to be human anymore.
That was a fucking weird moment for Data too. That was like really bizarre. That's the only time Data's looked like upset or disgusted or anything.
He's just like, man.
And then the Riker was corny when he was like, looking at Troy and be like, you said he made a pass at you, but you failed to mention when he was successful or not. And then another part was at the end, when the Cytherians told, like when Barclay was like, they just want to know you. And then Riker's like looking at Picard. He's like, oh, how cute is that? Like, this is what we do, It's like, it's just find all this bullshit to satisfy the curiosity of this other species. Like, and Riker's like, ho, 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 I don't know. Something about Picard or Riker throughout this episode, I thought he was being kind of a cornball, but not in a bad way. I appreciated it. It was fun. It's just a fun episode, I thought. So. It was not boring.
I like that this is one of those rare examples where they took Worf's advice.
Yes, I noticed that too.
Didn't work, but Worf is he's like, I suggest full phasers, Captain.
Yeah.
Captain Picard's like, yeah, okay, go for it.
I think that was Worf. I think that was the scene where Worf goes. He's like, Captain, I'm picking up an unidentified device, 1.8 kilometers. He says kilometers from
which is real fucking close.
That was a weird shot because when he says I'm picking up an unidentified device, shots on Worf, and then from off screen, Picard pops up from below off screen and goes on screen, and it was a really weird shot.
There's a lot of weird shots.
Yeah, because Picard pops from off screen and then he says on screen, and it was like what the fuck just happened, And he just, where did he come from? He came from below somewhere.
So
it was a weird shot.
This was directed by Rob Legato, and I forgot to look up if he's done any other. I'm not familiar with the name. I don't know if he's done any other TNG or not. I forgot to look it up. It's written by Joe Menosky, which explains how it's like got some good strong character and sci-fi elements to it. But this Rob Legato fella, I think, had some interesting ideas in addition to, we already talked about the quantum oscillation business.
Oh yeah, it's every 12.3, doubles every 12.3 seconds.
How do you titillate an ocelot?
You oscillate its tits a lot.
Exactly.
And you put a bottle in front of me, but something about a frontal lobotomy. Or
don't give me a frontal lobotomy.
You can pick your nose and your friend's nose, but you can't pick your butt or something.
It's all rerun. Rerun, like in What's Happening.
What's happening now?
Or What's Happening
Rob
now.
Legato worked on Reading Rainbow.
Oh, did he? That's interesting. So I don't think he did a bad job directing here, but there are some uncharacteristic things, because in addition to the oscillating tits a lot, there's the whole business with Barclay when he decides to go to the holodeck because he's like, we need a better interface, and he's running he's like running through corridors. There's one corridor shot where it's all like the camera's backing up while he's running towards it, and it's all like low down, and it's like he's the $1 billion man, or what, $6 million man, however many millions of dollars it costs these days.
$100,000 bar.
And it's just bizarre to watch Barclay just running full fucking tilt through these corridors. But that one shot in particular just was completely counter to what you generally have seen, certainly on TNG.
Yeah. On things like that, do you attribute it to they don't know what they were doing, or they were trying to go for something really extra weird? And
a little both.
Yeah.
And one thing it's fun to think about, and sometimes you can find evidence in the various things that were written about the episodes, production diaries and things like that. In these old seasons where they were producing 26 episodes a season, you can notice things towards the end of the season, right? Not that they always filmed 100% in order, but it was fairly in order. And they have a plan for the season, they have a budget for the season, and then they start filming the season. And my understanding from reading about those writers' rooms and the production offices and all that stuff is that they've got a bunch of episodes kind of mostly written to begin with. They start shooting them, but then they've still got a bunch of episodes to write. And time starts slipping away and they have to, and there's problems with the production or this, that, or the other thing. And so things come up, and that the ends of seasons are often somewhat harried.
Yeah.
And that can have both positive and negative effects. I think this episode is a great episode, but as we talked about earlier, maybe a couple things they didn't quite iron out as much as they wanted to, and maybe some production things that made them go in a certain direction or another, and some editing things they had to do to get into the right amount of time and all that.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like to me, that they're just sort of like, you go film this episode as quickly as you can. And he was like, all right, how's this? We'll make this scene stretch out by making it all like wobbly. And they're all like, oh, quantum oscillation.
Yeah, that was kind of uncharacteristic, strange, and like just, I don't know. Yeah, it was a weird kind of thing.
Weird business.
You like my words? I guess that made me think of how at the end Troy did give a message, and I liked her message. You know, that almost everyone has a moment in their lives when they exceed their own limits, achieve what seems to be impossible. It says you almost always feel a sense of loss when you lose it, or when you're past that point. But it is possible to carry something of that experience through the rest of your life in ways that you aren't even aware of, which I guess the thing about him doing the chess thing was, but I wasn't real clear about that. But I did like that message. And so you could say that was the point of the episode, but there was a few things going on. So it's really hard to say that.
I like that message too. But it didn't necessarily connect to much.
Yeah, right.
It was sort of loosely connected to Barclay. The message was
because
good,
once
though.
again, he was a puppet, we assume, of like those people.
Exactly.
So.
I think it's a good message. I think certainly Jesse and I think can identify with it ever since we did that episode on Fairhaven and Spirit Folk. Dan, you were out for that one, but that was just, I mean, you know.
Oh, that was the St. Patrick's Day one.
I don't know that it was St. Patrick's Day. I think we were just drinking a lot.
It was just Irish themed, and we were drinking.
We were just drinking a bottle of whiskey while doing that
Yeah,
episode.
maybe you're right. Maybe that wasn't.
Dan was off on a special mission, and
secret mission.
So Jesse and I had to do an episode together, and
I was wearing Picard's ninja outfit.
we did Fairhaven and Spirit Folk at once,
Yeah,
which
that
I
was
advised.
that was a wild
It was
podcast.
a wild ride.
Um,
Never reach those heights again. Anyway,
there was some weird. There was some weird jab at playing video games because like Troy was dissing on Barclay for withdrawing into the holodeck, and he was like,
Yeah.
no, acting is the same as the holodeck.
which is the same as the holodeck episode. It was like, don't get lost in the holodeck.
Yeah, I mean that's what crossword puzzles were right back in the day. Crossword puzzles was like going to the holodeck.
And
you know?
bicycles.
No, my favorite is when you find out that when novels became popular because they were new media at the time, all these parents and teachers were like, you got to ban these novels.
Yeah.
These damn kids, all they're doing is sitting under trees reading fiction stories.
Right.
They should be learning Latin and learning how to sew and
the
whatnot.
Bible.
These women are they're getting ideas, sitting
Yeah.
under trees, reading books about fantasy lands.
So I'm not.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, what the hell are they talking about?
I understand what
Jane Eyre?
Yeah.
I understand
Pride and
the
Prejudice.
message they're getting across by saying it's different because it's interacting and not withdrawing. I think there's something to be said about that, but at the same time, I thought it was very clumsily sort of expressed. I thought there was a point to it. Maybe it wasn't clumsy. Maybe
Tacked on a
it was
bit.
a little tacked on. I never liked that argument of like, oh, you're playing some stupid wasted of your time thing. It's like, well, fuck you. What are you doing? You know, like, well, I looked at a sunset. It's like, great. That's great for you. You know,
It's also it's the TNG style, it's the TOS style, it's the TAS style, and to kind of try to wrap it up. Not that they didn't do it elsewhere, but I think a little less on Voyager and on Deep Space Nine. Straight up, sometimes the message at the end of the show would be like, "Is there a fucking point to anything? I don't know. Find out next week."
if you go into the holodeck with other people, that would be a sociable version of going to the holodeck, right?
Yeah, like
which
Bashir and O'Brien.
do you think that's
and
more
Dax and Kira?
Do you think that's more or less sociable, or the same as going into one of those lower decks holopods that were connected by hollow tubes? You know how they each had their individual.
I don't know. I have to. That's a newer technology introduction,
apparently.
so I want to think about that a little more because I kind of like that in some ways, but it depends. It's kind of that whole debate between multiplayer versus single player games. Are single player games antisocial, or why would you call them? They don't need to be considered antisocial. Unless it's like, okay, what would be antisocial and I can demonstrate because this was me is when I used to play Elder Scrolls Online all the time, and I refused to interact with anybody.
Yeah.
All I did was like I wandered around the world, and I felt cool. I was like, oh, that's cool. Look at all these real people walking around. I can see their names above their thing. It's just like I'm gonna go in the woods and just sort of mine for like mushrooms and wood.
You're withdrawing.
I was out in the woods. It was nice. I was like, okay, I'm going to the village to sell my stuff now. Oh, look at all those people, but I gotta get back to the woods.
Presumably, holopods you can network with people, but is that the same as playing online video game with someone, or in the same local co-op in the same room? I don't. That doesn't really matter.
That's like, is it cheating if you have sex with a robot?
Yeah, right.
It's a debate.
It's a debate. It's a real debate.
It's a weirdly relevant.
Do they
debate.
have emotions? That's right.
No,
Are they
I think-
sentient? Are they self-aware?
I don't think we're quite at that stage yet, but I think
If you have a self-aware dildo,
that might be the difference, though. That might be the difference in whether or not it is infidelity. Is if the thing is if the creature is self-aware.
thing.
Hey, self-aware creature, infidelity. Not self-aware if it's just a hunk of metal and plastic and rubber.
This is bringing me down a line of questioning that popped into my head that I really don't want to get into. About like what's okay to, what kind of creature is it okay to, pleasure yourself with?
Are you going straight to bestiality?
I mean, I didn't want to.
I think you did.
I didn't want to.
See, for that you'd be mad for a different. If somebody did that, you'd be like upset for a different reason than cheating. I think.
Yes, I think that's a fair.
I think I'm upset right now.
Yeah, that's why I'm sorry. I didn't.
You
Patrick's fault.
You make
Patrick's
you make a cogent and fair point there. All right, I think that's any other odds and ends. Otherwise, let's close this
That's
down.
it for me.
That's
man.
it. Just
I got these crunchy crackers I want to eat off of the podcast.
Yeah.
just like Janeway and Tuvix, we can't forget that Picard ordered Barclay's death.
Yes,
He did. Nobody talks about it.
and there's no debate about it.
There's no debate about it, but he ordered Barclay's death. But I mean, I guess
Barclay.
it's what you have to do on a starship. Like there was that whole episode where you had to, which was the one where they were in a holodeck program, and the good to be a good commander or whatever, you had to order someone to their death. Was
Yeah,
that?
Troy had to during her
Yeah.
command test. She had to.
Yeah,
order
so
Joey to
I mean,
do
I
it.
guess it's not the same thing. Tuvix was a different scenario because he wasn't directly affecting them, but
Yeah, but in Tuvix they never talked about the morality of, or specifically what happened to the flower. Right, Tuvix was
He was part of
Oh,
Orchid.
yeah.
Helix,
right.
Tuvok, and the flower. What happened to the flower?
Yeah, what happened to the flower?
They never. They should have maybe it's in a novel. Maybe there's a novel about it or something. Write
it
us in.
canon?
And, write us in and let us know.
Maybe
if
we
there's
should
a
make up
novel
a story.
called like the Orchid of Tuvix.
Whoa, that's kind of awesome. I like that
I mean,
title.
we can do it ourselves.
We could.
We could get into the
But-
novel writing game.
Anyway, if I was Barclay, I'd be a little bummed out about that being ordered. Like at one point, my boss wanted to kill me. But
Sort of understandable.
it is,
All
but
right.
it's still a bummer.
So-
still uncomfortable.
Hopefully, you all out there in the audience got something out of this.
Yeah, we took the approach of the episode in delivering this episode. Just kind of like throwing some things everywhere.
No real meanie message, but entertaining.
Yeah.
Entertaining, nevertheless. Okay, so
Another great episode.
yes.
Yeah, I was a
Excellent.
big fan.
Next week
it was
is
a silly
Discovery.
episode, but it was really fun.
Next week is Discovery. Because Discovery comes back. So next
coming
week is
back.
Discovery. If you're not
Discovery's-
interested in Discovery, no worries. We've got like
you can fuck
a bunch of episodes. If you go to the website www.itsgotstartrek.com, in addition to other things, you can sort by category, by specific show.
It's
and
a useful
and it'll just bring up
device,
those
yeah.
only those podcast episodes that cover whatever it is. TAS, TOS, DS9, Voyager,
It helps.
TNG.
It helps us decide
Enterprise.
like which episodes we're going to talk about
Yeah.
next because we forget which ones we talk about.
we try to keep them together, keep them in line. But anyway, you can do that.
You can do that.
If you're interested in writing us an email,
Excuse me.
you can write us an email at feedback@itsgotstartrek.com. However, social media, we are modern folks. Social media is probably
We are modern.
the best way to get to interacting with us.
Are you saying we are modern folks or we are modern, folks?
Both.
That's impossible.
Do you
That's
say
impossible.
folks or do you say folks?
So social
Folks,
media,
clothes, clothes.
you can find us at It's Got Star Trek on Twitter, at It's Got Star Trek on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube.
Huge.
That's not how it's said.
Yes, YouTube.
You too.
It's with all the kids and the.
Facebook.
We put the podcast up there. We don't have any videos. If we put videos, we'd have to do the whole like, hey guys, Hey guys, it's got Star Trek. Hey guys.
Hey, guys.
Hey guys.
It's my show.
We're gonna unbox this episode. Hey guys.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. No, but seriously though, you can like and subscribe.
And give us reviews on Apple iPods and other things.
Apple iTunes. Oh yeah, Apple Podcasts.
Apple
yeah.
Podcast.
Apple Bop Bop.
You can get us all these
Those
places.
reviews help.
But if you can get us a review, that's always great. Apple Podcasts, iTunes.
We're doing the
whatever.
same thing that they do. Is we're doing the like and subscribe.
Yeah, but
thing.
we're doing it in a more chill, clever way.
much more witty.
Psych-
Sort of
Understood.
psychologically surreptitious.
Okay.
The audience isn't going to figure out
Syrup delicious.
that we're asking for the same thing that the obnoxious podcasters ask for, but we're doing it in a cool way.
Yeah, we're cool.
We're like, we don't care. We don't give a fuck if you give us a
Yeah,
review.
don't
or
do
nothing.
it. I don't give a
you
fuck.
You don't have to give us a review on Apple Podcasts.
I don't want you to.
Don't even
Or
listen
on
to
Google
us.
Podcasts. Or on, I don't know,
We
Spotify. Does anybody
disrespect
use
our
Spotify
audience.
anymore? I think people stopped using
Just
Spotify.
kidding. We love our audience.
Yeah, but anyway, I think we conveyed the important information. Next week, Discovery. Other episodes are available, and until then, good night, goodbye.
Yes.
Is that good?
That's
Yeah.
great.
Good.
To,
Sure.
to the nth degree, it was.
Live long and prosper.
There we go. That's a couple of good ones. All right,
We got a few. One of them will hit.
all right. Bye bye.
Captain, we have lost computer control.
What?